It's often said the choices you've made in your life define the present and direct your future. But when you're living the moment and you're faced with a choice, it's not always so clear as to what road you should take and what impact it will have moving forward. Each decision made carves its own path and leads you to yet another crossroad. Sometimes you're not pleased with where your decisions have brought you. All you can do is look back and reflect, and look forward and wonder. All the choices I made in my life came down to this one moment. I found myself at a table, confused and wondering what had happened to me and how I had gotten there. All semblance of reality seemed to have eroded around me without so much as a whisper. I scrambled to wrap my head around the questions I frantically wanted answered. And then it appeared. It was a book, but where did it come from? "1983. That was the year I was born, a new life, a blank canvas waiting to be painted with a lifetime of deeds. As I flipped through the pages, I recognized the chapters of my own life, and memories that had been long lost to me under the dust of age. I struggled to understand what was happening, but somehow I knew that there had to be a reason for where I was. Then, like an apparition, the book vanished, just as suddenly as it had emerged. Light, like hope, just needed a spark to allow it to spread to sights prepared to accept it. As I lit candles that anxiously awaited to be beckoned, I was shocked to find myself joined by another, more peculiar item. Once again, panic questions over where I was began to surface within me, and of this mask that stared back at me. I stared back and carefully wondered why there were a host of accusations in its eyes, not certain I wanted to know the answer. It seemed to speak to me in an angry and condemning silence, and as I screamed my frustration, I realized it told me of the masquerade that had been my own life. With that, all light extinguished once again, leaving behind only shame and anguish. Time never really felt like it stopped where I was, yet it passed differently. Realization was achingly slow to set in, and I began to think I was living an opportunity. In my solitude, I pondered at the lives my choices had affected, of wrongdoings I had committed towards others. I began to regretfully lament the rights I had left unfulfilled, rights that had been ordained on me as a sacred responsibility. My parents, siblings, relatives, friends, neighbors, co-workers, even strangers. Could there be forgiveness for the violations I had committed against them? I knew I had to try, again and again and again. Each time I ventured into the creative journey of transcribing my thoughts into physical words, the effort seemed to be inadequate. It started to dawn on me. I couldn't possibly atone for all the wrongdoings I had committed in an entire lifetime. With each crumpling of a paper, I plunged deeper and deeper into the icy waters of despair, and it nearly consumed me. Until my eyes fell on the briefcase. Apart from the wear of age and the dust of disregard, the briefcase seemed to be in good condition. It was resilient. For the first time in a long while, I felt the slightest quiver of hope. As I opened it, my eyes fell on the treasure it housed. A Quran. My parents had taught me to read it. My teachers had tried to help me understand it. I knew it to be the undisputed word of God. An unsettling feeling in me told me I had not given it its due. Still, the mere presence of the book seemed to bring about a peaceful serenity, unlike one I had felt in a long time. My tears gave clarity to my vision, and I began to see my life as a mosaic of injustices. The injustices I had done to myself, the injustices towards those around me, and finally the injustices against my Lord. I had been given the gift of time to uphold these simple relationships, and now the sands of my hourglass had run out. Now there was nothing left but to accept what was to come. I knew I was past the point of self-reflection, after which one has the opportunity to start anew and make right the wrongs committed. Now I no longer had the luxury of putting off righteousness and responsibility for another day. Each of my senses started to fade, and my head, suddenly heavy, began to fall forward. My heart frantically tried to plead for one last chance, but regrettably, perhaps due to a lack of experience and habit, I did not know how or whom to beseech. My mind was last to go. Defeated and void of all hope, all it could do was try and grasp hold of my surroundings, as if grasping any image around me could delay the inevitable. Even now it foolishly attempted to defy decree and assert its terms. It made the process that much more difficult, that much more painful. The purpose of the table had finally been fulfilled. It was now time for me to leave and be held accountable for the choices I had made in life, the choices that had brought me here.
Some might say this world today shows God's left us to our mistakes, so that He's never been so far away. Some might say, how could any father stand, see his children across many lands, suffer so, and give no helping hand, no helping hand. Somewhere tonight, far away and out of sight, there's a child that's too weak to cry. Deep in those eyes, can't you see